everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to the latest episode of The Big Show, where we welcome in the Biden-Harris administration with a special episode where we celebrate the 25th anniversary of Once Upon a Time When We Were Colored. Show correspondent Wilson Morales will join Charles Kirkland and myself for this informative episode. Plus, we'll have entertainment news and reviews. All of this and more on episode 439. We're keeping it real with FilmGordon. Let's go. All right, and welcome to the latest episode of Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. I am Tim Gordon. That is Charles Kirkland Jr. What's going on, player?
I don't have Adidas on. Howard on. I got Adidas. So sorry.
Hey, you gotta do the best you can, bro. I mean, I don't do a dress code. You show up at the podcast / show doing you. We just sit up here and we do from week to week basis.
I don't want to perpetrate like I went to Howard, although my wife is a alumni of the university. But I didn't go. I mean, I spent a lot of time on the campus, but I didn't go there. So
I'm not going to repeat what I said before we got on the air,
but
I do have strong Howard ties, and I will leave it at that. Strong Howard ties, including working for Howard University Radio for 7 years. So, I don't get an honorary or anything. No.
That's up to them.
Wow, man, this is so shady. All right, so we start off today's show by saying that this is the first show under the new Biden-Harris administration. Congratulations to President President Biden and Vice President Harris. How was Inauguration Day for you, man? Because I know it was fun for me.
It was a different inauguration than years past. It was exciting, though. It was, the poet laureate was beautiful, but I think I think the biggest thing for me, though, have been all the Bernie memes. I'm fully invested in all of the Bernie Sanders memes that are out there, every one of them.
Do you have a favorite? Because I think I have one.
Every time Melania's dressed, did you ever see Melania when she got off the Air Force One in Florida?
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
So there's one meme out there now with Bernie's head picture on each one of the little spots on Melania's dress.
I must admit that there were a lot of very funny ones, including him as part of Run DMC. But I think my absolute favorite, if you live in Washington, is we have in front of the DC lottery office in Southeast DC, it's called the Big Chair. And it's a huge chair because there used to be a furniture company that owned that site. So they put a big chair out there. And there was a meme of Bernie Sanders on the big chair. That one made me fall out laughing. That was funny. Because I know that spot well. So
I mean, if you ask anybody in DC about the big chair, everybody knows the big chair. So
everybody knows the big chair, man. So yeah, so that's our start off with our inauguration, man. But it has been a big movie weekend. Charles Kirkland's review of Salt and Pepper just went live on the FilmGordon within the hour. My review will be coming up a little later on today on the show. I was sharing that I watched Belushi last night, the upcoming Showtime documentary about the second funniest man who was a cast member on Saturday Night Live. We can fight if you want to debate this fact. Eddie Murphy is definitely number one. If you think Belushi was funnier than Eddie Murphy, then that's about you. That's not about us.
I'm not going to debate Belushi over Murphy. No, that's ridiculous. But I would maybe argue somebody else over Belushi. So
no. John Belushi's impact at SNL was huge. And, when you watch the documentary, it confirms what I always thought. I always thought that Belushi was the funniest dude outside Eddie Murphy on that show. There had been a lot of people, but you got to remember, man. See, again, this is where age comes in. And when I say age comes in, meaning that, wisdom, having lived and seen some stuff. I remember John Belushi on SNL. I remember, him being the samurai. I remember, his impact on that show. He was by far the funniest member of that cast. And then in the middle of SNL, while he was still doing it, he did Animal House. And Animal House was huge in 1978. That was a huge film for him. Then coming back with 1941 and some other stuff that Belushi did. So Belushi was huge before Murphy got there. So I love the documentary. I just thought that the ending, which you already know if you can just Google John Belushi's life and understand what it was, but it just was very, very sad. I chased that last night with Salt and Pepper, the Lifetime movie, which Charles got an opportunity to see as well. It's going to be an interesting experience for you guys tonight. I called it a flawed yet entertaining film. I don't know how you felt about that, but I just felt that it was almost like watching the OJs with a focus on Eddie and Walter, and don't even worry about the other guy.
Right.
Or run DMC and don't ask me about Jam Master Jay. I can go on. It's like Tribe Called Quest with Fife and Q-Tip, and don't worry about Ali Shaheed.
I totally, and I think I mentioned that in my article. So I totally feel you. Before we go any further, I just have to say that one of the saddest moments of the week for me was the passing of Henry.
Oh my God.
Aaron, just a couple days ago. There's not a lot of celebrities. I mean, you can recount all the celebrities that you've encountered throughout your life, but there's only a few that I've come across, and Henry Aaron, Hank Aaron, Hammer and Hank was a real dude to me. And his passing a week after he received the coronavirus, nonetheless, was a stab in the heart for me, because I think I shared it in a post where I had an opportunity to talk with him, and he consoled me, little me, nobody he knew before, about the loss of my car. I had gotten stolen off the streets of Baltimore, and so he's just the real genuine dude, and it's a sad day for me, a very sad day.
Well, here's the best thing that I can say about Henry Aaron, who I never met. The fact that he hit 755 home runs. If I took all 755 of his home runs away, he still had 3,000 hits. Right. He's still to this day the most on bases, the RBI leader. And since Barry Bonds took steroids, and we know he did, he's still a home run champ as well.
Can't be putting that out there. No innuendos.
Okay, let me just say that if in 2021 and you're watching this show, and the fact that Barry Bonds took steroids is news to you, that says more about you than it says about me. Everybody knows. It's not like it's a surprise. I didn't surprise the audience. Barry Bonds used steroids. Henry Aaron didn't use anything over 23 years. The man, one last stat, and I'm gonna leave it alone. He never hit 50 home runs in his career, and he still hit 755 home runs over 23 years. So the amount of consistency of Hammer and Hank, amazing. So we don't speak enough about him. And we don't speak enough about Jackie Robinson, of what those two guys had to endure. It killed Jackie Robinson early. He died looking like an old man before his time. Henry Aaron lived a long life. I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he was able to deal with all the hate, to deal with the racism, to deal with everything he had to deal with, and live to 86 years old. I don't know how he did it.
He was never flashy. You don't know anything about him. You don't think about it.
We know about him. We know about him, but
I'm saying, think about it. It's like you knew of Jackie Robinson, you know about his family, you know, you think of Henry Aaron and Hank Aaron, it's like all you knew was the sports guy, which is all you want to know. It's like all you want. I was like, you just want to know about this guy, what he accomplished. You look at those numbers, and I look to see like he made the All-Star 21 out of 23. 21 out of 23. Like, and then I actually looked that up last night, and I saw like who's active. I think Albert Pujols is probably the only active player with over 10 All-Star appearances now. You know, Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez had 14 each, you know, but when you think about 21 out of 23, you know, and you look at today's players, it's hard to be that much of a favorite every year. Because at some point, especially in his position, you know, it's hard enough for a pitcher to make the All-Star team over and over again, you know. But let's just say you're like that first baseman or whatever. There's always going to be somebody, you're 10 years in the game and some hot shot is coming up, but you still make the team. You know, you look at basketball, you look at, you know, how many times LeBron and Kobe and Shaq, you know, that they were, you know, they still kept their A game to be on the team. You know, it's almost like, you know, you want to be, it says a lot, you know, when you don't make the team, you know, because then people think your skills are eroding, you know, but to make it 21 out of 23, not 5, not 15 out of 23, 21 out of 23. You look at the RBI stats, and as you mentioned, he never had 50 home runs. So, you know, guys can hit 50 home runs 5 years in a row, and all of a sudden we come close to like, oh, he'll do it in 10 years. He just graduated. He had a sustainable 20-plus career, you know?
He had 8 seasons out of 23 where he had over 40 home runs. 8. The most he ever hit in the season was 47 in 1971. I mean, Henry Aaron's consistency, and I think when, you know, I don't know about Wilson. I can't speak for him, but I know Charles and I are kind of guys in our 50s who grew up watching baseball. I've been a baseball fan.
I've been a baseball fan, you know. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I'm talking about since 1973. So I saw Roberto Clemente play. I saw Henry Aaron play. I saw Willie Mays play, and a lot of these guys. And I'm just here to tell you straight up, you think about all the legends of the game, and I'm not just talking about all the legends we saw. I'm talking about Mantle, DiMaggio, Garrett, Ruth, Ted Williams. You think about all the legends in the game. Aaron was better than all those guys. And the only reason why people never talked about him because he played in Milwaukee first, and then in Atlanta, he wasn't, like you said, Wilson said, he wasn't flashy. He wasn't out there. He was married to his wife over 50 years. Henry Aaron, man.
Yeah, and he was, and they
consistently weren't. Guy. He was like, what, 6 feet and some change?
Think about it. Who else was in? So when you think about the Milwaukee Braves when Aaron was on there, outside, and I could be wrong, I don't know the dates. Was Warren Spahn there at the same time?
Warren Spahn was there. I mean, they won the World Series in 1957.
So it was Aaron, Warren Spahn. Who else?
Oh man, they probably had a couple other players, man.
But think about it's funny, but think about usually that team has at least it's got to be at least 4 guys you got to mention. It's funny enough that we're only mentioning 2 names: Warren Spahn and Henry Aaron.
But those are 2 great names, though.
Yeah, but then what else? What else you got? Like who was on that Braves team when they changed? You know, when they moved to Atlanta. You know, who was on that squad?
After he won in 57, they never won again. He never won another World Series after that.
So when he had 71, when he had 47 home runs in 71, who was on that squad? It's like you don't think of anybody else. There's always that one player that makes the team. You know, even when you have bad teams, there's one good player. You know.
Wow. I think the memory, my defining Aaron memory is that I remember when he was chasing Ruth. He was 39 years old in 1974. He hit 714 at the very end of the season to tie Ruth, went into the offseason, and on April the 8th, it was a Monday night game, and they were publicizing every game the Braves played until he broke that record. And when he hit that home run in Atlanta off of Al Downing from the Dodgers, I watched it, I was like at home like this. Yes, he did it. Man, that was a huge moment, man, for Henry Aaron. And he went on, Wilson, to hit 40 more home runs before he retired.
Wait,
That
remember he
wasn't the
only
last home run.
he retired 2 more. He went on for 2 more seasons.
Yeah.
Went over 2 more seasons, hit 40 more home runs, man. So Henry Aaron, man, I had to stop what I was doing and to acknowledge his life, his legacy, his
Wait, no.
footprint,
Well, wait,
and
wait.
everything.
What was his total home run record?
755.
Yeah.
So he had 1 more season. We had 40 home runs. Because if he broke it with 715, then he had 1 more season then.
Right.
No, I think you might be right. He might play 2 more years because he went into Cooperstown in 82. So that means it was 5 years after his last game. So his last game was in 77. So you were right the first time. That's why I don't correct Wilson, because Wilson is a man of much knowledge. And sometimes it may not come off when you look at it, but Wilson is very, very smart.
Nah, here's a funny thing. Like, I grew up a Yankee fan. I remember, at the time I'm young, all the money I have is for the bleachers, and still a fan. I remember in '96 when the Yankees were just making the playoffs for the first time after 20 years, since I think '81, I think it was. I remember, standing on line because they said, "Oh, first come, first serve," and we slept out in the streets to be on that line to get tickets. To be desperate. There was no StubHub or anything like that. It was like, nah, you got to be there to get online. And you saw that they were that people who have money were paying homeless people to be on a line, to get tickets. I was like, wow, that's how they beat the system. And then they decided to do.
Excuse me a second, Wilson. Did you hear me and Charles talk about being veteran baseball fans and in the 70s, and you went to a 96 story? That's what you did?
Because you guys are 20 years older than me. So I'm like, come on. Say I can't relate to no 72 series. I'm like, what were you then? 25?
First of all, for folks at home, Wilson is not 20 years younger than I am. So that's number one. Wilson's trying to see. Wilson puts on a black skin tight shirt to try to give off the youthful appearance.
Skin tight shirt. This is an XL.
You realize that black don't crack. You could actually be 110 and nobody would know.
It's underground represented.
I had that shirt on last week. All right, so let's get out of this, man. Let's get to rest in peace to an icon and a legend in Hammerin' Hank Aaron, 86 years old, man. I mean, you lived a full life. And before I go, my funniest story is if anybody saw The Black Godfather, when they had the section where Andrew Young talked about his pursuit and he needed to be paid, he called up the Black Godfather, Clarence Avant. And Clarence Avant came into Atlanta and went straight to Coca-Cola's offices and went straight to the CEO's office, walked past the receptionist, went in the dude's office, and had the famous line that I'm not going to give out on the show, but Negroes drink Coke too. All right? You need to pay this man. Negroes drink Coke too, except he didn't say Negroes. So you fill in the blank on what he said, but.
After that, they signed a contract with Hammerin' Hank for him to be a spokesman for Coke.
And he wound up working for Coke after he got out the game. So, so Clarence Avant, who's still with us, I try to acknowledge that brother as much as possible, man, because his tentacles over the last 6 decades have been everywhere. So, everybody who's anybody in Black entertainment can talk about having met Clarence Avant, had a conversation, been counseled by him. Henry Aaron, Muhammad Ali, and Jim Brown and others are no different. So I would love to be counseled by Clarence Avant myself. So shoot. So that's what we will leave that there. But Wilson Morales from Black Film and TV, how are you, sir? It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Good. We we're in the midst of January. We've had a lot of Black films come out. A lot of films with Black talent in front and behind the screen come out so far this month.
Okay, excuse me, sir. Before you get started, I just want to talk to you about some news that made me a little dismayed, and I wanted you to be here to talk about this. You heard this week that 3 significant films by African Americans, The U.S. versus Billie Holiday, Judas and the Black Messiah, and I'm trying to think, what's the third one? Oh, One Night in Miami.
Okay.
Are all ineligible in the music category for the Academy Awards. And I went, really? Three really high-profile films. All three of them just out the game. Wilson, explain to the audience why, if this is something you're familiar with.
I think what they're alluding to is that in Ma Rainey's, well, let's just say, for example, the United States versus Billie Holiday, there's no new music, there's no new material.
No,
you can't nominate a song that we already know of. You know, remember the categories.
Strange Fruit. You can't
Yeah. So right off the bat, it's like these are songs we already know of. The category is best original music, best original score. You know, I didn't read the details as far as if the scores are eligible as opposed to the song. You know, so that I don't know the full context of what the article was, but you know, when you look at Ma Rainey, you know, if the music was played in the theatrical productions, it's not original.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and what was it? So it's Ma Rainey.
No. It's actually One Night in Miami, Judas and the Black Messiah, and the U.S. versus Billie Holiday. And I think there's a threshold, Wilson, in the article where they talked about it had to be 60% or more of new music in it in order for it to be eligible. And since none of these, like you said, you listen to Change Is Gonna Come, you're not gonna nominate that. That song is like 50 years old. You're not gonna nominate Strange Fruit because that song is old. And then in Judas, there's so much music of that period. So I sort of got it and understood it, but I was still disappointed because I'm like, wow.
No, because they wanted to put it out there because when, you know, nominations come out late April or whatever, you're going to see like, oh, why didn't they nominate this? Because it's, you know, for today's audiences who do not know the rules, you know, and you're going to get more of these stories as far as which screenplays, because you always get these stories coming out when it comes to like which screenplays are eligible or not, you know, he's not part of the WGA or whatever, you know, so it varies, you know, as far as, but to put it out there, it's like, hey, and it just happens to, it's a story because it's 3 films with predominantly a Black cast, you know, so right off the bat, it's like, okay, you know, but I think John Legend's song will be nominated for, I think Never Break. I think that will be a nomination. That would be a nomination for, I think, is it Giving Voice?
Giving
Voice. Yep.
You know, so like he'll get in. So like you'll have, you know, and every time, you know, you never know with the music categories. It's like sometimes a lot of these studios and films want to tack on a big name and they don't always pan out. You know, they don't always pan out.
All right. So the second thing that I wanted to congratulate you on is that I opened up my alerts this morning, and the Hollywood Reporter, Scott Feinberg, wrote a piece this morning saluting the Black Film Critics Circle for naming Ma Rainey Best Film of the Year. Congratulations, head of the BFCC, Wilson Morales.
Co-head, but now I got to give also props.
Whatever, man. I ain't giving Mike Sargent no love on this show. Good job, Wilson.
You know,
and if you're watching, Mike, if you was here more, you get more credit. Go ahead, Wilson.
But you know, I think of the films that people got to see, since we have a predominantly, you know, Black press on our group, you know, they saw Ma Rainey over everything else, including yourself, over like the Nomadland and Mank, you know, and some of these other films that are out there, you know, they gave it more praise over One Night in Miami, you know, because obviously you have Chadwick and you have Viola. It's almost like spades in a way. Chadwick and Viola are like 2 jokers, and One Night in Miami are like, oh, you got 4 aces, but I got 2 jokers. You know, it's like, okay, who's gonna win? I got 4 aces. You got those 4 guys, you know, in there, and you got Chadwick and Viola. Yeah, but I got 2 jokers.
See, Charles, this is what you get when you go to Cornell University, man. See, they play a lot of cards up there. So his film analogies are always, never mind.
But so but we definitely had a great year in 2020 in terms of plenty of films, quantity and quality of films, either directed by Black, produced by Black, or starring Black. And we can go down the list. Ma Rainey, so you got Ma Rainey, One Night in Miami, Sylvie's Love, Miss Juneteenth, 40-year-old version. There's Sylvie's Love. It's like you can keep the 24th. You can keep going down as far as that. If each one of those had the same visibility and the same marketing, it wouldn't be so easy. You may say, okay, Ma Rainey's got Chadwick and Viola, and that may be an edge, an advantage. But a lot of these other films were equally just as good. Same thing like documentary. MLK, Withdrawn Arms, Time. There's a lot of good documentaries that also came out last year that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, but they were there. We just got to find the time to watch.
We're aware of everything. So no, I mean, I agree with you, Wilson. I think the other thing is, and we forgot the Five Bloods, and Wilson will not count this film because he thinks it's a holiday film, but Jingle Jangle, man, was just fantastic.
That's you. I didn't say that, David Talbot. That was Tim Gordon.
I asked about this last week. I said, what about Jingle Jangle? You was like, nah, it's more of a Christmas movie. I'm like,
every week there's a different Wilson on board, That was Wilson from last week. Hey, I don't remember that guy.
That is a great answer. I like that. Like, hey man, that's the Tim from last week.
That's the Wilson with the blue shirt, same background, but today it's a clone.
Nah, man. I'm just before you came on, Wilson, I was, I try to explain to people who are close to me, and I get no sympathy from this because they'll tell me I work all day and then I come home and there's so many movies that need to be screened. So I'm watching movies and I try to get people to care about this and nobody does. They think I'm just tripping. Like, really? Oh, it's real hard work to sit there and watch movies. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Do you realize like last night I watched the documentary and a made for television film back to back. The first one was really, really sad. The John Belushi documentary, which is coming on Showtime. We thanks to our friends who I'm not giving any names, we were able to watch Salt and Pepper last night, which is a entertaining yet flawed story, as we talked about at the top of the show. There's a couple of other movies that I still need to catch. I was screening one movie which will remain nameless, but it has a filmmaker that everybody knows who traditionally is not that good of a filmmaker. And 10 minutes in, I was like, yeah, the film is not gonna work. The performance is good, but the film is not gonna work. So Wilson knows exactly what movie I'm talking about without me saying anything. There's a couple of other movies that are coming out. We've got next week, Denzel Washington's latest, The Little Things will be hitting theaters. The week after that, I think, is Malcolm and Marie. Couple of weeks after that, or is it the week after that, Wilson, is
Judas
and the Black Messiah, and then the U.S. versus Billie Holiday. So you're going to be getting slammed one after the other coming up the next 4 or 5 weeks. And in addition to that, with the 10th annual, I didn't realize, Wilson, it was a 10th annual Black Film Critics Circle Award. 10th annual?
10 years. 10 years.
Wow.
Wow.
So congratulations on getting the double digits, man. So next month, we are going to unveil some surprises for the 21st annual Black Reel Award. And I will leave the surprise there. I'll let you all be surprised because they surprised me an hour ago. So I'm going to surprise y'all later. So we getting ready, man, for what I think is probably the most, I say this every year, but this year I really mean it. The most competitive year we've ever had. It is going to be a blood sport trying to figure these movies out this year. It really is. And I don't envy Wilson Morales, Charles Kirkland, and the other 102 voters of the Black Reel Award. Y'all on y'all own, man. I'm going to give you the movies. Y'all let me know what you think. And we will get it out to the folks and let them know. So I'm very interested in what Wilson and Charles will think, because I respect both these dudes. I know they're about their work. They've done all of this stuff, watched all these films, know the performances, and that's the key part. Know the performances. So I'm very excited, man, for some surprises that are coming up, Wilson. And I want to pivot for a second to ask both of you a question. When I initially, because we're going to go on the Once Upon a Time We Will Call It next, but I want to pivot over to Disney Plus in episode 3 of WandaVision. And I screened it. I know all three of us screened it before it aired. So we've all seen these 3 episodes. But in watching the 3rd episode for like the umpteenth time, it dawned on me, man, that Kevin Feige is a genius over at Marvel. Because the first 2 episodes felt a little uneven to me, because it took me a minute to adjust to the tonality of what Marvel, with the MCU, they were trying to do with this. I mean, am I the only one that was thrown off when you saw the first episode and went, what the heck is this? What are they
like,
doing?
where are we going? What is going on?
So what, it wasn't just me.
Why is this happening? How is this happening? All these questions were coming out, and you're right. The first 2 episodes, you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna see where this is going, and then the 3rd episode hits.
But so I want to ask both of you, and specifically Wilson, because I want to get your answer on this. One of the things that I do a lot, and I'm very upfront and transparent, that there are times that I watch something the first time and I don't get it, and I'm like, I didn't like that. And then when I go back and watch it again, and maybe a 3rd time, I go, oh, I understand what they're doing. So my opinion will shift. Charles, you've seen me do this. My opinion will shift. I felt like that about Soul. I saw Soul the first time and went, I'm not getting this. And then after I've watched Soul a couple more times, but here's my question. The audience, they're not gonna, do you know a lot of audience folks, like people that are in your circle who don't do what we do, who will give a project 2 or 3 looks and maybe change their mind? Is that just something that we do, or is it something that the audience does?
A lot of IP property gets in a built-in audience. So everybody knows about WandaVision because what the characters represented on the big screen in the Avengers. And so you walk in there, and knowing what you saw on the big screen, you kind of expect something similar in a small screen.
Right.
And then when you saw those first 2 episodes, and you're like, if you're young and you don't remember how some of these sitcoms were in the 50s or the 60s, you're like, what's going on? Where's the laugh meter? I'm not finding the chive here. It's like, okay, let's see. Teyana Paris is in there, knowing that her character is going to come back in Captain Marvel. So you're looking to see, okay, how soon before they start working on that storyline to see how is it going to translate from small screen to big screen. So you're going to give it a shot, But I'm sure people are like, I don't know.
Well, wait a minute, Wilson. But my question to you is if somebody watched the first 2 episodes the first time and didn't get it, will they have enough patience in this overly saturated streaming environment to go back and continue to watch something if they didn't like it the first time?
Since you've already said the 3rd episode works better, I think people will probably go into that. If they could tell you that you don't need to watch episodes 1 and 2 and start off from 3, that's what they'll do. It's like first episode's like, okay, it's an introductory, it's kind of weird, but where we're gonna go? How does it affect episode 2? If you could tell me that episode 3, start from there, you're good to go. And that's what people are waiting for, because it's still Marvel. You know what they can deliver. You're going to give them that blind loyalty, like, okay, I'm going to stick with you till I can't anymore, because you think about the other series, The Shield, it was like, it didn't get the best of ratings, and fans were like, how much more can I take of this? But they lasted 7 seasons, they lasted 7 seasons, so it had its fan base for a period of time.
I like Agent Carter, man. I thought that they pulled the plug on Agent Carter way too early.
That was actually a good series, but they didn't have its audience. They failed in Humans, and you look to see the series that they had on Netflix, they were always topsy-turvy. Daredevil was the better of the 4. You know?
Well, Daredevil was the better of the four, but Luke Cage, the first season, got really good numbers. It really
They
did.
had good numbers because it's another Black series starring one of the prominent Black superhero characters, you know. And as you see, Charlie Cox is going to be reprising Daredevil role in the Spider-Man film. So instead of taking all four of those characters, you're only taking one of them, the best one that people will remember. You know, so we have yet to see. They're still plotting that out. We don't know how it's going to play out.
Wait, hold on a second. Chuck jumped on your back. What did you say, Charles?
I was saying for now, like he's saying, we don't know they said that they're involving all of them somehow. So right now it's just Charlie Cox, but we should be seeing Luke Cage at least coming up soon.
Yeah, Wilson, take that.
We'll see. You know, Charles is in honor what he's reading. Maybe he's reading the Inquirer or.
All right. So you know,
if I can jump in for a second, I think Wilson hit it right on the head. Marvel has a built-in audience. And so, you know, in this world of streaming where we can just click a button and watch it over again versus having to pay to go through a movie theater to see it over and over again. Yeah, your Marvel fans are going to watch this over and over because they're going to be digging through for every little Easter egg that they can find. So yeah, I think the answer is people are going to watch this thing 2, 3, 4 times, if how many times they want to, until the next episode comes out. So it's a little different in this age we're living right now, where it's just at a click of a button. Yeah, people are going to watch it over and over and over.
All right, so I wanted to transition, and I've got to make a programming note. You know, I told Wilson because Wilson inspired me with this. Wilson actually inspired me with a couple of ideas. One, which we're going to look on next month about romantic films. But Wilson inspired me with these anniversaries because he's really good over at Black Film and TV of posting, like, you know, this film came out 27 years ago, this film came out 17 years ago, etc. Once upon a time when we were colored, I'm telling you guys, it was the 25th anniversary. It's actually the 26th. Because I thought it was a 1996 film. It was actually a 1995 film, but hey, what the heck? This film tells a story about a narrator who talks about his childhood years in a tightly knit African-American community in the Deep South under racial segregation. And for lack of a better term, if this was a television show, this would be a Black version of the Wonder Years. That's exactly what it would be, except it would have happened like maybe 20 or 30 or 40 years earlier. It's exactly the same sort of concept about this young boy who grows up, who later becomes the author, who looks at this tight-knit community and the racism and how his parents and friends in the community all dealt with it, surrounded him, protected him in a cocoon once upon a time when we were colored. I thought this movie, man, when I first saw it, I just thought it was a powerful piece. And Al Freeman Jr., who was a professor over at Howard University for many, many years, see me rocking my HU shirt since Wilson's not rocking Cornell. Al Freeman Jr. is fantastic in this film. And there's one particular scene that every time I think about this movie, when I watch it, it always stands out to me. He takes his young grandson out for the day, and he's downtown, and he buys him some ice cream. And as he's buying the ice cream, there's a Ku Klux Klan rally that comes down the street. And he is holding on to his grandson and holding on to the ice cream cone. And the Klan member comes over to try to taunt his grandson, and the camera pans on his hand holding this ice cream cone that he's squeezing it like a fist, that the cream, I was like, Al Freeman Jr., massively amazing performance in this film, man. Felicia Rashad is in it. Leon is in this film. Richard Roundtree. You know, this was a Tim Reed directed film from that time period. Now, I'm not going to put either of you guys on the spot because, again, I pride myself as a man who watches a lot of movies. I know Wilson Morales watches a lot of movies and covers it. Charles, I can't speak for him since he's never seen The Godfather from start to end. But I will just say that I said from start to end, you've seen The Godfather, but you've never had a continuous sit through. So I enjoy watching movies. I enjoy watching contemporary films, African-American films, docs, foreign language films. You just show me a story, and if it can transport me, I'm good. This film, to me, and I'll get to you guys, that, I know that neither of you, this is kind of one of the films in your canon, but did you get any value from the story that I just told and the film itself?
You said it came out in 1995. I was not that far removed from graduating from college. And at that point, I'd seen a lot of films, but I wasn't seeing a great deal as I was maybe. I could probably say maybe around that time period, but I don't remember who released that. Who released that movie?
All right. You're asking me that question. Let me find the distributor.
And
because if I recall, I don't think it was released by like a major studio.
Well, let me address the production note that was given.
Yes, I'll get you that information. This
movie was a festival release in '95, but it wasn't released in theaters until
'96. Thank you.
Technically, it is the 25th anniversary of its theatrical release, which would be January 20 something.
And what festival did it play at? Did it play at any of the, like, we're talking 95, so we're talking, did it play like at ABFF, Sundance?
No, there was no ABFF in 1995. ABFF doesn't come in until 97.
Yeah, so basically, did it play at like Sundance or Toronto?
No, just local film.
Oh, you know what? It was BET Pictures, United Image Entertainment.
Yeah, so I can probably say, so let's just assume it didn't get that wide a release to the point where I don't think a lot of people know about it or saw it, or I don't even think it's played on TV to a certain extent. So people would know. Like when you mentioned it, this was like I had to think back. Like, oh, when did I see this movie?
Now listen to this. Roger Ebert at the time gave the movie 4 stars out of 4. I thought it was a very, and it's funny because when I was talking to you about the Wonder Years analogy, it's a really good analogy. You could take this same story, use a Wonder Years format, and it would be perfect for Once Upon a Time When We Were Colored. I mean, you'd probably give it a better title to make people watch it, but that would be the best way to present it. And another one, since I know Wilson, if you just gave me the speech about I was just getting out of school, I know you didn't see this one. There was a television show that CBS had in the early 90s called I'll Fly Away with Regina Taylor.
I saw that. It used to air on Fridays.
I love I'll Fly Away, man.
I'll Fly
love
Away.
that
Was
show.
it Sam Waterston?
Sam Waterston, thank you. Now, see, it's interesting to me, the stuff you remember versus the stuff that I think you should remember that you don't.
Tim be looking at crates, he be digging at the barrel, be like, oh, maybe he don't
Tim
know.
Tim does not. You want to hear something funny? And I made this observation a couple of days ago because, as I'm going through streaming channels, Turner Classic Movies is one of my channels. And it was Dr. Martin Luther King Day earlier this week. So TCM had an afternoon of Black films. You want to know what's ironic about that? Is that every film they showed has Sidney Poitier in it. So to show you the library of classic Black films that TCM has, the lion's share of them have Sidney Poitier in them. And then there's stuff from 1949 like Pinky, The Lost Boundaries, Intruder in the Dust. And it's one more movie from that year that I don't remember, but that's a seminal year because 1949 was the last year that they would make these quote unquote big screen race movies before the emergence of Sidney Poitier in 1950. So I say all that to say that if you study the history of Black film, outside of race films that you can find here or there, Oscar Micheaux, I think, only has 3 of his 40 films that are available to be seen and released today. Spencer Williams may have 2. You get about 3 Bronze Buckaroo films from, what's the light skin? Herb Jeffries. There's not a lot of those films. You may be able to catch Hallelujah from 1929, or it's another 1929 film. It was two. King Vidor did Hallelujah, and it was one more from 1929. Or you get Rex Ingram in 1936 with Green Pastures, and then some Paul Robeson films. That's it. If you're Black and you're looking for stuff to watch that's like from the beginning of Hollywood, what I just went through, and maybe about 5 or 6 other things, that's it.
And if you take out Sydney movies, it's like, okay, they ain't a lot.
I'm just saying. So, you know, when we had this question, I think it was a couple of months ago, we talked about romantic films, and we were talking about there was a lack of them because all of the films we would talk about would be within the last 20 years because there weren't a lot of these movies made.
No, I think the discussion that we were having at that time was about Christmas films, actually.
Christmas films, thank you.
And that there was a dearth, and that's how we got on the Jingle Jangle, is that there's just been a dearth of Black Christmas.
They weren't greenlighting our stories. You didn't have, you know, if it didn't make sense to make money, they weren't greenlighting the stories. Obviously, in today's world, you know, there's platforms of every level where you can make certain films. You know, but still to this day, you're not getting a lot of these major films, you know, being greenlit. At the end of the day, it's like, okay, we had a great year, but it's like, you know, how many of these movies, and it all kind of combines with marketing. You know, take Regina King's name off of One Night in Miami. How far does that movie go? You know, it's like anybody can do Ma Rainey, but it's obviously Viola and Chadwick that's going to get you to watch it. You know, there are a lot of movies out there that need to be talked about, and they don't have the names, but they have the story.
So Wilson, so hold on a second, let me jump in. Because when you're absolutely right about Ma Rainey with Viola and Chadwick. Fences was Viola and Denzel. What happens when you try to make an August Wilson story and there's no Viola in it? So what do you do then? Who watches it? Because Denzel Washington has obtained the rights to all the 10 Century Cycle films. So there will be at least 8 more of these movies that'll come. And I'm assuming he has this deal with Netflix. So I guess Netflix.
Yeah, initially it was an HBO deal, and they transferred it over to Netflix, where he's going to produce all 10 films, all 10 adaptations.
So who anchors the other 8?
Denzel
is Viola Davis, and then just pick a Black dude or pick a dude.
Well, Viola can do King
Hedley,
because she did
can
it on
also
Broadway.
be in Jitney.
She could also be in Jitney.
I think you guys are thinking the wrong thing, though, actually, because this is a time and opportunity for Denzel to exhibit. I mean, he just did the Giving Voices on Netflix, where he's looking at new voices, new talent that's out there. This is an opportunity for him to, like you said before, with the Five Bloods. There's people out there who can play these roles. Let's let some other people have a crack at it. He's the producer. He's the director.
But yeah, there's always that line as he's the producer, but is he the money producer? You know what I'm saying? You know, at the end of the day, someone's gonna say like, "Yo, we need somebody to pay for these seats." At the end of the day, you can go back to say when Denzel directed Antoine Fuqua, he had to appear there. He can't just be Derek Luke.
Oh no, that movie went out of soul with just Derek Luke.
You know, it's like no, even though Denzel's directing, is he in it? No, I'm not gonna see it. You know, it's a lot of times they make these deals where like you gotta appear in the movie in order to sell this, in order to get any traction. We don't know who this Derek Luke is. We don't have no faith. You know, if you don't want to direct it, fine, we'll put it out in 300 theaters. You know, as opposed to the 1,000 theaters. You know, your name carries a lot of weight.
Here's what I would say. I want to see Jamie Foxx in one of these August Wilson plays.
That'd be hot.
That would, or Michael B. Jordan in one of these August Wilson plays, because like I said, there are 8 more of them.
In a way, I kind of do and I don't, because
you think that the actor would overshadow the story?
Yeah, they would. You know, think about it. At the end of the day,
see Viola and Denzel that overshadow Fences.
Do you know the name of their characters?
In Fences?
Sam Jackson said that August Wilson plays are the equivalent to Shakespeare, where he said you have your Shakespeare actors, you have your Wilsonians, you know, like, you know, these characters, like, you know, who played, Levy's a well-known character, you know, from Ma Rainey. and you start thinking about like, oh, there's King Hedley. Oh, which characters from Two Trains Running? You know, you should know these things because there are 10 of them only, and you know who these characters are. So if you don't know who's playing what role, but you just know the actor's name, he's already overshadowing it. You know, like
yeah, I mean, well, see, I would say yes and no, Wilson, because there's so many actors who came up doing these August Wilson plays. Like Sam Jackson was in a bunch of these, right? So if you put Sam Jackson in it, you may think that Sam is overshadowing it, but Sam knows that dialogue because he had to do it back in the day.
But think about Shakespeare plays. Think about Shakespeare plays whenever they do a Shakespeare production, whether it's film, TV, or on theater. You know, it's always about who's playing Hamlet,
who's playing Hamlet, who's playing
Ophelia, Gertrude.
Yeah.
Like you know these roles.
Yeah,
Romeo,
you know the role, right? No, I got you.
Romeo, Juliet, Mercutio. You know, it's like you just know these roles from.
But Wilson, you got to remember, Shakespeare wrote those plays like 300-400 years ago. Wilson just wrote these plays within the last 50 years.
But yeah, but just think about it. Most people are probably seeing Shakespeare productions as opposed to reading it. How can you honestly say how many Shakespeare plays did you read as opposed to seeing a production of it? Whether it be theater.
Let me open up my screenplay for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, provided by our friends at Netflix. Yeah, man. So I have some Shakespearean words here from Ma Rainey. The character,
yeah. But okay, even with the Shakespeare lines, you're based. A lot of them remember those lines based on the adaptations they saw. And those lines stick out along with the characters. So when somebody says, "Oh, I'm about to do Hamlet," you're like, "Who you're playing?" Okay, you know what that role entails. So when you say about Michael B. Jordan going to do King Hedley, it's like, okay. Or if somebody else is going to do, Michael B. Jordan's headlining King Hedley. Okay, who else is in the movie? Then you don't know. At the end of the day, we all saw Ma Rainey. Can you name, Coleman's role? Michael Potter.
Hitler.
Michael Potter.
No.
Glenn Thurman.
You mean Glenn Turman?
Glenn Thurman, yes.
Stop.
No. Already stopped. The 5-second rule's over.
Toledo.
I see your eyes, Charles. You looking down on something.
I'm looking at the screen. I was looking up for a minute, but I'm looking down at the screen.
The point being is like, you want sometimes certain people are not cast because they're going to overshadow, the role and the film, and like I said before, take out, Regina King's name is so huge that brings the audience to One Night in Miami. If another person directed it that was not as big, it's like, oh, Kingsley Ben-Adir. But it's Muhammad Ali, it's Jim Brown, it's Malcolm X, it's Sam
Cooke.
Sam Cooke. Whenever you talk about that play and just those 4 characters, you don't care who's playing it. Think about it. We didn't care who's playing it. It's like, oh, you got some British cat named Kingsley Ben-Adir. He's playing Malcolm X. Some guy I never heard of, Eli Goree, playing Muhammad Ali. And then you see the movie and you're like, wow. You're paying more attention. Had you could have said, you know what? Let's get Will Smith to reprise his Muhammad Ali role.
That would overshadow the film. I mean, we talked about that.
Think about it. It's like, think about it, Will Smith.
But it's hard. But it's hard to overshadow an August Wilson play because August Wilson's dialogue is so rich that you need an actor that can come in there and deliver it. So it's almost an honor, much like it's an honor to do a Shakespearean play. It's an honor to do a Wilsonian play. It really is.
I just saw a movie that's going to play at Sundance called R#J, directed by our brother, Carrie Williams. Another version of Romeo and Juliet told through modern times. They're speaking the lines of Shakespeare, but it's told through cell phones.
Right.
So today's technology of like how to do a Shakespeare play through cell phones, where everybody's videotaping each other, and you still come up with a scenario midway through watching a movie. I had to remember like, oh, okay, it's Shakespeare, and who the beginning result, the end result. Now you got to think about what happens in the middle of it.
So Charles, what Wilson is telling you is that until we start to see them make different variations of August Wilson plays, that's when we will know that the Wilsonian plays have entered into the same canon as the Shakespearean canon.
Well, that's basically what it is. We want to do that. We want to do all sorts of. Obviously, with 10 plays, you want all of them on the screen. And granted, I guess you want the big names because that's going to sell it. That way his words will always live through whoever's saying it. It's like you think back to Fences, when he has that talk with Viola and he's telling her about he's about to have a baby with somebody else. It's like you're feeling that. You're like, oh, here he comes. Here he comes. And you see how, Denzel playing the strong man, but emotionally he's crumbled because he has to now talk to his wife about like, I messed up.
No. My favorite scene in Fences was when he talks to his son and he says, when he's going out for football, I put that food in your stomach. You think I do that because I love you? No, I do that because that's what I'm supposed to do. Man, I was sitting in the theater like this. Denzel Washington, bro. He is an actor's actor, man. As much as I love Sidney Poitier is a technical actor, is not Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington is kind of like the next version of Sidney moving forward with his nuances and his technicalities as an actor. He is so good. He really is.
Well, both of us are living through the time of watching Denzel as it is. Like obviously, I did not see Sidney Poitier films when they were coming out. They were way before me. So like you're talking about Denzel because you're seeing it.
You act like I'm old enough to have watched Sidney Poitier.
You were right there with him.
Like Tim's talking about. That's why I'm like, I can't go there. He's talking.
I watched Raisin in the Sun for about the 117th time a couple of days ago.
Tim is like giving this whole Denzel thing, like he's trying to make a comparison, like, LeBron.
You can't make a comparison. You watch Lilies of the Field, Patch of Blue, Heat of the Night. You watch Raisin in the Sun, Defiant Ones. You watch enough Sidney films that you can compare his style to Denzel's style. Denzel is more, as I said earlier, he's more of a technical actor. He's just better. Sidney is more important. That much I will acknowledge because we would have no Denzel Washington, Howard Rollins, Samuel L. Jackson without Sidney Poitier. But I'm just saying.
Also Harry Belafonte. It's like he didn't do enough films like Sidney.
No, Harry didn't do it. He did not, man. Now he made some good films, but he didn't make enough of them. It's like, who do you compare? Cardi B or Lauryn Hill?
Now, let me ask you.
Boy, it got quiet on that one. What happened?
When Sidney was out, who was the next person behind Sidney before Denzel?
Well, that's a good question. But everybody was young. Brock Peters, Ossie Davis. There were some guys that were out, but none of them. Actually, let me take that back. The second best actor, I think, of that time, I would probably give it to Ivan Dixon. Nothing But a Man in 1964. He co-starred with Denzel in A Raisin in the Sun. Ivan Dixon was a really good actor. But again, you're talking about the 1950s and 60s where they had room for just one dude at a time. So it was either Poitier, Belafonte, and don't ask us about anybody else.
And then in the 70s, you had Richard Roundtree.
No, Roundtree won't come until like 1970.
That's what I'm saying. In the 70s, they were like, oh, I got a way I can put you in more movies. You just do this role over and over again.
It's a different game. And that's why I said now we're living, this is really the golden age of Black film right now, because I was telling people, and I'll say it publicly because I've said it behind the scenes, is there was a time that I was concerned, man, we got to do more to get Black films out there. Black films are in really good shape right now.
They are there.
No. I don't think he's saying to get them out there. I think he's saying to bring people.
No, I'm saying they're out there now because we now tell stories through our own perspective. We're out there now. I think we're in a really good place. I'm worried about how do we do a much better job of getting women out there now than I am about getting African Americans out there, because our stories are going to be told. They really are.
Well,
There's
there's
enough filmmakers that will tell our stories.
There's definitely, obviously, I wrote an article about, the breakthrough we had for, Black women directors last year. And they're there. You just got to get those stories out, and you got to get them on the right platform where they're taken seriously. And no shade to some of these networks, but sort of like, I think Miss Juneteenth, probably would have had a better response if it had played on Netflix where everybody can see it of all ranges, as opposed to playing to just BET, because as it is right now,
was that no disrespect?
But it's sort of like, play it on Netflix where people find it, of all sorts. You say BET, and there's certain people that just don't watch BET stuff, that they don't know what channel is it on. It's like, Tim, are you one of those people that don't watch BET stuff?
I used to work at BET 2 times, so my criticism of BET is valid because I worked there.
So it's like, but had it played on Hulu, think about it. What would have happened if they said, "Oh, United States versus Billie Holiday is gonna play on BET"? You're like,
See, Wilson, stop that, man. All right. We are 1 minute over time. Before we get out of here, I'll start with Charles Kirkland, who Wilson kept cutting him off and he couldn't say anything. Where can people read your content, including your review of Salt and Pepper, the Lifetime movie debuting tonight?
I really wanted to talk about my favorite scene from the movie that we just never got to. But anyway.
Wilson cut you off, man. You got to fight through Wilson, man.
Yeah, Charles, you've been on long enough. You guys have 10 minutes before I come on. You got to say your piece. You got 10 minutes, say your piece.
Remember that, Charles.
I'll remember that. I will remember that. So you can check me out at thefilmgordon.com and on the DC Film Life on Twitter and Facebook.
Wilson Mashup Morales, where can people read your information?
You can look for me over at Black Film and TV, BFTV News on Twitter, Facebook, Black Film and TV, Instagram, Black Film and TV. So definitely you'll find stories there. I'm always trying to uplift the next man and woman.
All right. And I will just simply say, FilmGordon, Google it, and it'll pull up everything that you need to know. So I'm not going to do a Wilson Morales and rattle off like 19 social platforms. What? You can find me at Twitch, Clubhouse. Oh. All right. So that's how you guys in closing.
I didn't get to say anything this whole show. Y'all had so much shade going back and forth.
Man, I'm just saying, you got to jump in, man. You done been around Wilson enough. Cut Wilson off, man, because Wilson won't stop.
Like I said,
as I was saying, please see something good at the movies. Please check out the 25th anniversary, which is actually on Tuesday. I'm sure Black Film and Television will run a piece, probably some interviews. Wilson will find some folks because that's what he does. Check out Once Upon a Time When We Were Colored. And if you really want to check it out, it's on YouTube. Just Google Once Upon a Time When We Were Colored and watch the movie. All right.
That's not good to see a free movie like that on YouTube.
Of course, Wilson Morales is right. But I'm just saying, if you can't find it, at worst case scenario, it's on YouTube. And I hate to say this, there's a whole lot of other Black classics on YouTube too. So as Wilson said, that's not good, but it is what it is. Until next time, you guys take care. Howard University, Kamala Harris, you do your thing. Stop hating Wilson. Black Bottom is on Netflix right now. Wilson can't find the book. We out until next week. You guys take care.